Alright, hello guys. Today we're going to be learning how to draw a face, a human face. This is kind of our intro to portraiture here a little bit. Now once you guys get into grade 10, odds are you'll probably do a whole unit on just drawing faces. So this is just going to be an overview, but hopefully it'll give you some insight as to how to draw faces. There's several different methods. I'm going to show you the one that I like and what I usually do. So let's get started. So we're drawing Captain America here. He's got a good symmetrical face. It's looking right at us. This is what we're going to start with. I'm using right now I'm using a 2B. You guys could be using a 2H during this time. This is just so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, whenever you start drawing a face, this is what you want to start with. You want to start by drawing a circle. Try to get the circle as round as you can. Make long, wide passes as you go. So you can kind of keep going over it and over it until you get it nice and round. So that's pretty good. What this is going to be is basically be this top part of his face right here. Okay, so that's basically what it's going to be. It's kind of like down to his cheekbones there. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut it right in half. So take a line and you can drop it past the bottom of the circle by quite a bit. All right, next we're going to find the exact middle of the circle. Okay, so try to measure someplace in there. This is not where the eyes are going to go. This is actually to help us find where the bottom of the chin is going to be. So if this is one section and this is another section, we want to have a third section roughly the same size. Okay? And you can put a mark there. So you should have three areas that are pretty much the same size. And he's got a big flat chin at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw a line down like that. Now what we can do is we can start connecting some of the dots. So I'm looking at the way that his jaw actually works, and it seems to be tapering in. Right? It tapers in, it's not straight down, but it is mostly vertical. Okay, so it is going pretty well, pretty down, but it's not a perfectly straight down line. You also notice that it kind of comes to a point right on the edges there, so you can get those areas in there as well. That's going to be about around the mouth. So we might come back and edit these lines a little bit later, and that's okay. Okay. All right. Erase these little loop-de-loops we did here. Now, we basically have our outline of our face, of our head, but we need to figure out where the features are going to go. So the eyes are going to be right in the middle, right? So if you have, this is the top to the bottom, right in the middle, that's where our eyes are going to be. Should be someplace in here. Looks good. My face is a little bit narrow. That's okay. We'll worry about that later. So right in the middle, that's where the eyes are going to go. The eyebrows are going to be slightly above. Now, eyebrow lines move, right? If the person is surprised, if they're glaring like Captain America is here, they're going to be closer to the eyes. But if they're surprised, if they're happy, generally eyebrows go up. Next, we're going to put in the nose line, and the nose is basically halfway between the jaw, bottom of the chin, and the eyes. Okay, so if that's our middle line, it's going to be right around there. Depending on how big you drew your circle, it might line up close to where the bottom of the the circle is. Sometimes these don't always end up the same way. Sometimes they're a little bit different. So you can kind of draw a line straight across again. And finally, your mouth. Now your mouth is going to be closer to your nose than it is to your chin. Almost always. Okay. And this is it. This is the skeleton of what we want to do. This is basically the equivalent of our sticks, our lines and circles that we did for our figure drawings. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to figure out where to put the eyes. Always, always, always start with the eyes. If you mess up the eyes, you're going to mess everything up. And if you do everything else and then come back to the eyes at the very end, well, if you mess up your eyes, you've just wasted a whole lot of time. It's easy to restart once you get to this phase. If the eyes really aren't working out, you can always restart. We haven't done a lot of work here so far. Okay, so the trick for eyes is when you're spacing them, I usually put little marks on our line, just like that. And when we're spacing them, you should be able to fit, so this is basically going to be an eye in here, right? An eye here. You should be able to fit a third eye right in between, right? So the space between these marks should be the same distance as the eyes themselves. And you should be able to fit a fourth and a fifth eye on either side of the face. So you should be 5 eyeballs across. That's the trick. Okay, so you can draw those in lightly just to kind of gauge, or you can measure. You can measure with your pencil, you know, if this is right there, right? So I'm pretty good. That's a little trick, or you can always use your pencil to kind of and then just put your finger there just to use a quick little ruler function, kind of. That's pretty close. Then you can start actually drawing the eyes in. Now the eyes, for drawing the left eye there, it's going to go up. It's not just a line like this. It's not just what eyes look like. They're not just almond shaped. They are. This is a very simplified eye, right? We want a little bit more detail. So it goes up, goes across, and it goes down. And then there's a tear duct there, right? And then the bottom is very similar. You want to have a little bit of an overhang here because your eyes are, there's wrinkles. It's basically a flap, right? So they overhang each other. They're going to connect again back over here. And then there's always an eyelid on top and an eyelid underneath as well. So let's do that. So up, cross, down. Same thing on the other side. A little bit more light on this side, which makes it easier to see, which is nice. All right, something like that. Let's do the eyebrows while we're in the area. Now his eyebrows, like I said, are quite close to his eyes. Right? They're almost basically right on top. They are wider than the eyes. They're very straight. Something like that. We'll fix these up later too. Okay, let's do the nose. The way to measure the nose is the width of the nose is roughly the same as the inside of the eyes. Okay, so if we were to draw lines straight down from the corners of the eyes, that's about how wide our nose should be. roughly, okay? So, the way I draw noses is I draw a circle, and then I draw these two little hooks that come out from the bottom of the nose, bottom of the circle. Those become our nostrils. And then you can draw areas like that and draw the rest of it. So I'm going to draw a circle here. You don't want it too big and you don't want it too small, all right? So you really want to look at how big the bulbous part of your model's nose is, okay? Because noses come in different sizes. Something like that. It's quite sharp. And then it's going to go arc up. It's going to kind of become like a little triangle in here, okay? Something like that. And you can, on one side you see here, there's lots of shadow here, so I'm going to draw in that line. So look at how the nose actually goes. It actually goes out a little bit, and back in, the bridge of the nose, and then back in towards the eyes. So it's kind of got a bit of a zigzag pattern there. Okay, I'm going to draw, this is going to seem a little bit weird, but I'm going to draw a vertical line on our eyeballs. It's going to make them look a little bit scary, but there's a reason for this, and I'll come back to it in a minute. What I'm wanting right now is I want to find the center of the eye, and that's going to help us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line straight down from that center line, and that's going to end up being our center of our, sorry, the edges of our mouth, straight down from our eyes. Now, a good way to see if you have this lined up well, you should be able to draw a line from that point. You should be able to just clip the edges of your nostrils for your nose, and it should line up pretty well with the center, right, the dead center of the head. So that's a good way to kind of check your work, is just by making a little triangle like that. Everything lines up. Okay, so we got the edges of our mouth. And the way that we draw mouths is like this. It's basically like a letter M, right? So if you have an M, something like that, it's a very simplified M, or very widened M. So you're gonna go, basically take all the vertical lines here and make them horizontal. So it kind of goes like this, over, down, up, down. So up, down, up, down. Okay, it's like an M. That's the gap, the actual mouth. The top lip is very similar. It goes up, down, and it kind of follows the contours of that first line. Then you just basically draw an arc for the bottom of the mouth. The bottom lip is almost always bigger than the top lip. They can be very close in size, but usually the bottom lip is always just a little bit larger. So let's do that on this Captain America drawing here. So up, down, and the down part, that's going to be the center line, right? Up, down, down. And take a look at the actual reference photo as well when you're doing this, because lips always are a little bit different. And the bottom lip. Good. Okay, let's come back to these eyes, our weird cat eyes here. The reason that I put these lines in is because they're actually going to help us find the center of our pupils and our irises as well. So I use it to kind of measure the difference between the left side and the right side. So these two halves should be roughly the same size. It also helps us find where our pupil is going to go. Okay, so it's going to go right on top. Right, it helps us if I have, let's draw another line over here. So if I've got these two eyes, right, if I don't do it, I might draw one and it might be pretty good, but I might draw another one and it might look like this, right, or something. And now he looks cross-eyed, or he's got one that's kind of going off this way or something, right? You don't want your eyes to look like they're going all over the place. So those lines help you figure out where those are going. Okay, from here, guys, what we can do is we can start erasing some of our guidelines. I'm gonna leave. Oh, we forgot to do the ears, didn't we? Okay, so our eye line and our nose line, if you just kind of put those back in before you get too carried away. The way that the ears work is they go up. So we have a line here. They go up from the eye line, up to the eyebrow line, and all the way back down to the nose. So every part of the face is pretty amazing, actually. All relates to another part. So up, down, and around. Make sure you get those earlobes in. And don't make them too big, too, right? They're not a perfect circle, right? They're not a C shape. It's like a squished C, right? It's your ears are close to your head. There, looks good. Now I'm going to keep erasing my guidelines, and I'm actually going to keep some of this circle in as well. Now this is actually going to turn into our cheekbones, like I said earlier, right in there. You'll also notice it doesn't have any hair. We'll deal with that in a minute too. Okay, now let's start putting in some details. So I'm gonna put in like kind of the areas around the eyes, right? Figuring out where that those eyelids go. This is the part of the drawing where you're just getting details in. So find out where the darkness and shadows are. There's always lots of darkness around the nose because generally light comes from above, right? So there's almost always going to be some sort of shadow underneath the nose. For in this case, it's over here because the light's actually coming from this way, right? All right. Let's put the hair in. I'm tired of looking at him like a bald guy. So I'm going to start with the hairline, and it's about it's about a third of the way down the head. And again, it's kind of this M shape, right? So you have, if I were to go from the center, go up, and then out, and then back in and down, and out, and then the sideburns go back in, right? So you get this real big jagged line. We'll do the same thing. So up, down, and out. Kind of match it with the one next to it. Down and in. Back out and in. And then for the actual hair itself, so we have, this is if you were, had a crew cut. Buzzed head, go up, I'm not drawing every single little hair. I'm just drawing the shape of the head, shape of the hair, okay? Up, just kind of got this flat part here, flat across the top, back down, something like that. Be a little bit high. And then you can erase the scalp. All right. This stage too, guys, if you want, you can start putting in the neck. Whenever I draw portraits, I always like to put in a little bit of the neck. The reason for that is because people just don't have floating heads, right? They have shoulders, they have necks, they have bodies. So almost, yeah, try to put in at least just a little bit of the neck and shoulders. It doesn't have to be much, just a little bit, just so that you get the semblance of, you know, there's actually a person standing here. Okay, this stage, what we can do is we can start putting in areas of light and shadow. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of seeing like these big areas here, right along like the cheekbones and stuff. Right, there's all this big core shadow in here. You guys remember core shadow from when we were working on basic solids, learning how to shade and stuff. Got this big cheekbone here. A big area right there. And there's this big shadow kind of underneath his nose and around his nose on this side, as well as underneath his chin. Big area there. And what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm just going to real quickly shade in, paint by numbers, kind of the areas that need to be darkened. Okay, so at this point, guys, you can switch over to your 2B. Okay, so now we're going to get to our hair. We've got basically some basic shadows going on here on the face. It's good enough for what we need for today. So for the hair, don't draw every little hair that's poking out everywhere. It never looks good. It just never looks great. Instead, what you want to do is you want to find the big shapes. Okay, so I'm looking at like this area here, big chunk there. There's a big chunk in the front. It kind of comes down like this, sort of around the middle of the head, and it kind of swells down. And then there's another big chunk on the side here. And there's a couple little doodads there, a couple on the side, something like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in those chunks. Paint by number again. And you can do this with the flow of the hair. That's fine to get kind of that hairy texture, but you're not drawing every single little hair, okay? So you can kind of like do it with the flow of the hair, which way the hair is going, and kind of get some like spikes or something like that, right? But you're not drawing every little hair. See, I did 1, 2, 3, 4 lines right in here, and it looks like there's a bunch of hair. Same thing over here. Figure out which way the hair is actually going. And the rest can just kind of be filled in, right? So because there's all this shadow and highlight on the top, I'm just going to leave this white. All this is just going to be white, because that's what I see. The ears, same thing. Okay, so it's basically, you can just shade it in, lightly shade it, and then kind of put in what you see. So it's kind of like this arrow, kind of this sharp arrowhead thing going on there, and that's good enough. Right, so another sharp arrow kind of goes down. And that's basically it, guys. This is a pretty good representation of Captain America. So yeah, keep at it. Keep going with these drawings. Have fun, and make sure you submit them when you're all ready to go. Yeah, talk to you guys later.